Hey, brothers and sisters, we have experienced some technical difficulties, and it appears now that we are on. Thank you for your patience and understanding, but welcome to online Bible study with Pastor MAPSON on this Tuesday evening, 3 days before Christmas Day, and how it has come upon us so rapidly as the year also rapidly comes to an end. I want to ask persons who are on the Bible study line to be sure to mute your phone so that there will not be interference, and also asking that all of you will keep up to date with us on our social media platforms. This is a certainly a new year, and that calls for a lot of creativity and finding new methods to stay in touch. And social media certainly has made it possible for us to do that. And we're not in worship on Sundays, but you're able to go to our social media platforms to find out what's going on around and about the church. Also, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. And we are still having issues with our YouTube channel. But remember that for persons who would like to view us on YouTube and who do not have Facebook, you can do that, but not with via the live broadcast. But once the live broadcast is over, for instance, once Bible study is over, you can still go back and watch it on YouTube. There are three ways to give. We want to thank you. These 9 months, you have been as faithful as any congregation could be in continuing to demonstrate your love for God and your love for your church. You've been giving online. You can and ask that those of you who are doing it that way will continue to do so. You can text to give. The number 215-709-3898. 215-709-3898. You may also, of course, mail in your tithes and your offerings, and you can drop them off at the church office any day during the week. And certainly want to thank you again for your faithfulness in giving. We are near the end of the year, and always when we are in church, we make envelopes for the new year available for you each Sunday during December. Of course, we can't do that this year, but we do have envelopes available for those who would continue to give by using envelopes. There was a pickup on yesterday, and many, I understand, came by on yesterday. There are 2 more dates when you can pick up envelopes from the church. Those dates are December 28th, which is next Monday, and the 30th next Wednesday. So next Monday and Wednesday between 10 and 2 o'clock. And if you cannot get them during those hours, if you let us know, then we will do what we need to do to match your availability. Those who are not able to get to the church, drop by the church. If you contact the church office and leave your name, address, and phone number, then we'll see to it that envelopes are brought to you if you can't get to the church. But again, it's very important that we prepare for 2021, and you will need your envelopes to do that. And please continue to be as faithful as you have been in the past. Thursday is watch night, Thursday evening at 10:45. And guess what? You have the luxury this year of attending watch night service virtually in the comfort and warmth of your own and security of your own home. You can dress like you want to dress and join us in worship at 10:45. It's going to be a wonderful worship experience, I promise you. And I will be preaching the New Year's sermon titled, What a Year. What a Year. So please join us for watch night. We want to be in prayer for Sister Janet Fagan, one of our very fine members, who lost her father just a day ago, who lived in Delaware. Father was, I believe, 94 years old and succumbed to COVID-19. So those who know Sister Janet and those who don't, we want to certainly be in prayer for her. And I'm sure she would love you to contact her. Now we have come to the end of the Advent season, and we have I think just enjoyed this time of anticipation and expectancy, waiting for the birth of the Lord on Christmas Day. And we have gone through the 4 Sundays of Advent. The first Sunday was the candle of hope was lit. Then the second Sunday, faith, and then joy, and then peace. Now comes Christmas Day. And of course, Christmas is when we celebrate the actual birth of Jesus Christ. So Advent leads us to Christmas Day. And then beginning on Christmas Day is what in some traditions is called the 12 days of Christmas. So Christmas Day is the first day of Christmas, and the 12 days of Christmas ends traditionally on January the 5th, which is in many traditions called Epiphany. And it gets that name from the celebration of the visit of the Magi. Of course, we know them as wise men. We've heard the term kings, and that term is made popular in the Christmas carol, "We Three Kings of Orient Are." But the Bible calls them wise men, and Epiphany represents the visit of the wise men to the child Jesus, and when they presented to him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and of course tradition says that there were 3 kings or 3 wise men, and that's because 3 gifts were brought. But the Bible doesn't say there were 3, and maybe there was 3, maybe more than 3. But they did bring their 3 gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Gold representing royalty, because Jesus was of royalty, and frankincense was an incense that was burned during the worship and used in worship, and gave a sweet smelling aroma in the temple, in the sanctuary. And then myrrh, of course, was an embalming ointment, which represent the fact that this baby would one day die and be buried. And of course, myrrh used in the process of burial. And so we celebrate these traditions, and of course, we as Baptists, we don't celebrate some of these traditions, but I think it's very important for us to know what they are, whether we celebrate them or not, and to appreciate other faith traditions other than our own, because people worship God in different ways, and we, as our history and tradition as Baptists, of course, worship is central. But then in worship, what is central to us is the preached word. The pulpit is centered, because that is central to our proclamation and belief, and it's sermon, song, and prayer. but at the center of that is the preaching of the gospel. And other traditions are different. Other traditions find God and encounter God through ritual and through tradition. Um, and so we all find God in different ways, but it is good to know about some of these other traditions. Epiphany again comes at the end of the 12 days of Christmas, which is January the 5th, I believe. Not only is it a celebration of the uh, Magi and the gifts that they brought. But remember, the Magi are Gentiles, so it is also the presentation of Jesus to Gentiles, not just Jews, but to Gentiles as well. And in other traditions, it is also the celebration of the baptism of Jesus. And so there you have it, all of those wonderful traditions. Now, we're going to continue in our Bible study, and we are studying the book of Revelation. And again, when I say book, it's more than a book. Every book in the Bible is a book in the Bible, but to understand literature in the Bible, we break them down into categories. And so we have learned that Revelation is in the category of what we call apocalyptic literature. Apocalyptic literature, which means hidden and then revealed. And so that helps us to understand how we would study the book of Revelation. And we also understand that Revelation is the culmination of history, that just as there's a beginning, there's an ending. And Genesis is the story of the beginning. How did the world begin? How did we get here? How did sin come into the world? How did the journey of Abraham and the covenant inform the rest of the Bible and even inform our faith today? Then Revelation is the ending, and raises the question of what's the end going to be like, and even more important than that is where is God at the end, and the assurance that the same God who was in the beginning is the God who will be in the end. And so Revelation is a book that gives balance. If you had some scales, you would have Genesis on one side and one scale, and Revelation on the other scale, and those scales would balance because of it being the the end. Now, what we want to deal with for the next few moments that we have, and I may go a little past 7 to make up some of the past 8 rather, to make up for some of the time that was missed. And again, technology is technology, and I think we've been wonderfully blessed since March to have had very few glitches, and I don't recall but maybe one time when we just weren't able to get on at all. And so whenever these things happen, be patient. It may take 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Give us at least maybe a half an hour, like tonight. And then if we're unable to get on at all, then if you are attentive to the social media platforms, we may just switch it to the next night if we can fix the problem, or if the problem can be fixed. Not always our problem, but it is technology. What can I say? But anyway, what I want to begin with tonight is the question: why was Revelation written? Why was Revelation? Why was the book of Revelation written? Uh, this apocalypse with all of these strange creatures, and book that is shrouded in mystery for so many people. Why was it written in the first place? And in order to answer that question, we have to ask the question, why was any book in the Bible written? See? So we don't want to just ask it about Revelation. We ask it about every book in the Bible, because every book in the Bible was written for a reason and for a purpose. And of course, we might say, well, yeah, because God wanted it written. Yeah, and that's true. But then it still begs the question, why does God want it written? And what is it about a particular book that is so important enough to God that God wanted it included in our Bible for our benefit and for our good? And I keep going back to 2 Timothy 1:16, because it is a very important scripture in terms of studying and understanding the Bible. For it says, all scripture is God breathed and is useful for four things. Useful for teaching, number one, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness. Four things. All scripture is God breathed and is useful for four things: teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training. And it's very interesting when we read that particular verse, because I think a lot of people read the Bible for the wrong reasons. It does not say for comfort or to appease us or to make us feel good about what we're doing. And of course the Bible does comfort us and gives us hope and encouragement to keep on running. But for teaching and for rebuking, so the Bible reprimands us and says to us, you wrong, or you need to look at this another way. So we want to understand that God has given us the Bible because he knows that we as errant children need correction and need sometimes to be rebuked, warned. So there are lessons in the Bible about saying, look what happened to this person in the Bible. Do you want this to happen to you? So it's a warning that we have to heed, and correcting, because we need to be. Now, we don't like to be corrected, but this is the purpose of the Bible, to correct us in terms of doctrine, in terms of what we believe. And so we can't believe our opinions. We have to believe what the Bible says, and then training in righteousness. So if we want to be righteous, and don't be afraid of the word righteous. It's not, do you want to be perfect? And of course, that is not a bad thing to want to be. But righteous. Do you want to be in a right relationship with God? And God is saying, if you want to do that, here is my word. Here are these 66 books, and each one of these books has something to say about me and about how you can encounter me in all of my glory. And so, why was Genesis written? It was written to show us how the world began and the journey of mankind from the beginning, and the call of Abraham, and then the gift to Abraham of the covenant, and that covenant which has been guiding us. Why was Jeremiah written? Why was any book written? And so when we ask the question, why was Revelation written? It is the same question we ask of any other book in the Bible. Why were the letters of Paul written? And we discovered that there were reasons why these books in the Bible were written, and then reasons why God said, now, this writing is not just good enough for the people to whom it was written, meaning the people who were living at the time of its writing. This needs to be understood and read by my people who will come afterward. And so for 2,000 years, we have been using the Bible and the books in the Bible to understand God and understand our world. Now, when we ask the question specifically, why was Revelation written? And I want again to be clear, it was not written to scare us. It was not written to confuse us. It wasn't written to throw us off, To talk about why it was written, we have to begin with the term emperor worship. And that's very important. Emperor worship. EMPEROR, emperor worship. And to understand emperor, the word emperor, you have to understand how nations then not only came into existence, but how they were governed. We're used to a democracy. We're used to that's been under threat, But that's what we're used to. We're used to, and I think we've seen in the last month how easy it is to take democracy for granted and just assume that because it's here that everybody loves it and everybody's going to see to it that it's preserved. And what we found out is the very person who swore with his hand on the Bible to uphold the Constitution and to protect our democracy is the very person who wanted to tear it apart and rip it apart for his own benefit. But we live in a democracy. We do go to the polls. We elect persons, we the people. We elect persons who will govern us, and we elect them for a period of time, and then either they have to come out because of tenure, or they're reelected, or we vote somebody else in. But that's kind of the process that we're used to, and that's the only thing that we know. Well, there are some countries even today that are monarchies. They're totalitarian states. Russia's not a democracy. China's not a democracy, and many other countries are not democracies. Some countries still have kings and queens. And so when we talk about the time in which Revelation was written, it was written during the time of emperors. And of course, the emperors were Roman emperors because Rome ruled the world. I touched on that in my sermon Sunday. Rome was the strongest nation in the world at that time, had all of the power, all of the influence, the infrastructure, you had to pay taxes to Rome. And at the head of that state, so to speak, or that empire was the emperor. And the emperor was not like a president. The emperor had, well, maybe like this president going out wants to be or wanted to be, but the emperor had all power in terms of earthly power, at least. And there were no, there may have been checks and balances in place, like courts and some of that, but basically the emperor was not elected. Either the emperor became emperor because his father was emperor and father dies and he becomes emperor, or someone in that family line, or sometimes because of a overthrow of the government of the empire. So you have somebody strong here who comes and takes power from the emperor, and he becomes emperor. And so that was the setting of not only the book of Revelation, but it's the setting of the New Testament. Jesus was born under the Roman Empire, and remember, the reason why Joseph had to go to Bethlehem, where the baby was born, is because of the decree went out from the emperor. We want a census, and so during those days, you couldn't register online or mail in a census like we did. You had to go to the city or town of your birth, and so if you were born in Pittsburgh, you'd have to go to Pittsburgh. Or Camden, you go to Camden, or Newark, you got to go to Newark, and so that's why the emperor decreed this census that brought Joseph and Mary to Bethlehem. See, so God is using, that's another sermon, but God is using a secular power to do his will, because the prophecy, Old Testament prophecy, says that this child would be born in Bethlehem. You see how God works through secular powers to do his will. But anyway, the Roman emperor was top dog. And when you're the emperor, how do you maintain power and authority? Because we know that the challenge of leadership, well, the challenge of power is that nobody wants to give up power, and sometimes power is anesthetizing, and people don't always understand the right use of power, and they use power for their benefit, or use power to maintain office, or use power to get favors at the expense of the people. But why do you think, let me hit politics a second. Why do you think all of these Republicans have been so silent and complicit in all that has happened in these 4 years in the White House? It is because of the threat that if they don't go along, then their constituents won't like it and won't reelect them to office. That is the bottom line. It's about power and maintaining power, and often the need for power is more important than the need for justice and morality. And so we've seen it over and over again throughout history, where people compromise their beliefs for the sake of power and influence and money. So the question, Emperor, how are you going to maintain power? Because if you had to take it by force, you got to keep it by force. And so what the emperors had to do was not only see himself as an emperor, but to also see himself as what? A god. You know, small g, of course, as we would use it, but he had to see himself as a god, and the god therefore has to be worshipped, and so there was this emperor cult, because now the emperor is not just human, not just a man, but he's God, or at least God-like, small g, God-like. So you've elevated the emperor from being a mere mortal like you and me, flesh and blood mortal, but now you have an emperor who is also God. See? So now you have extra layers of authority and power now, because if you're God-like, then you are setting up yourself as one who should be listened to and followed, because you're not just a man, you're not just a human being. So the emperor was divine. Now listen to all this, because this is what we call God. We call our God God, and God is divine, and God is holy, and all of that. Well, the Romans said, no, our emperor is God, and our emperor is holy, and our emperor is worthy to what? Be worshipped. And so you have developing a cult of personality. So it's not even just the office that he holds, it's the person himself. Because again, in our system, it is the office that makes the office holder powerful. So I don't care how much power you have in the office. Once you no longer have the office, you ain't got no power. See, and that's how the boy's problem there now. He wants the power. No matter how much we loved President Obama, he was an ordinary citizen until he was elevated to the position of president, and with the office comes the power and the authority and the influence. But then once he is no longer president, still held in high esteem, still beloved, and highly respected as a decent man, but doesn't have the power of the office. See, but in Rome, there was no separation from the office and the power of the office. And so it wasn't just because he was emperor, it was because he was now God. See, and so we're dealing with the cult of personality, and therefore the emperor now is one who demands, not asks for now, but demands loyalty. See, so there's a demand for loyalty. He is the kingdom. He is the empire. See, we would never say of a president that he is America. And again, the one who's in there now wanted to be that. But I don't care how much you want to be it. The system we have prevents that. And so I don't care how much you want to be that. When the time is up, you can no longer be that. You can never say that because you're president, I am America. You can say I am president of the United States of America because I have that office. But you can't equate the president with the nation as if they are one. Well, in Rome, the emperor would say, I am Rome, and I am the kingdom. This is my kingdom. See? And so now, what are the consequences of not worshiping the emperor? And I'm glad you asked, because I think you may already know. You may already know the consequence of 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 not worshiping the emperor is the threat of death. The consequence of not recognizing the emperor as divine or as God or godlike is death. And so you have this situation now where the people must decide, and it really wasn't a decision, but technically to decide what are we going to do. We're going to fall in line, says the people of the empire, and worship the emperor and call him divine, because he is more than a mortal man. He is Lord. They use the term Lord, and our king. And so you had two famous emperors at the time. One was one called Nero. You may have heard the name Nero. And Nero was considered a very bloodthirsty and vicious, brutal emperor. And then you had another one called Domitian, and it is thought that it was Domitian who was the emperor during the time of the writing of the book of Revelation. Either one of them, would have gotten the same thing: brutal, insecure, uh, uh, crazy, bloodthirsty, all of that wrapped into one person. And you can imagine then a person like that has all this power. See, and you have the setting for what we're about to see as the book of Revelation unfolds. It was so bad that you might say people would pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the emperor. See, now we say we pledge allegiance to the flag, which is I think bad enough, but yet it is not to a person. It is to the flag representing an ideal, or the American way, or American values. That's one thing. But I pledge allegiance to the emperor. And so those who did not comply were two things: either executed or they were banished to a penal colony, to prison. See, so now here is an emperor who claims to be king and divine. On the other hand, here's a group of people who claim that another king is divine. So right there you say, uh-oh. We got Domitian, who claims to be divine, who desires to be worshipped, and not just desires, who is worshipped. And then you got this little upstart group of folk called people of the way. Because remember, they weren't called Christians in the beginning. And perhaps by now they were. But you got this upstart group, this group of upstart people, just common people, this movement claiming that someone named Jesus Christ is king. And not only saying that, see, it's one thing to say that, But it's something else to say that not only is Jesus Christ King and all the other Savior, Lord, but then to say that only Jesus is to be worshipped. So you see what's happening here. You have the powers of the state, the empire, saying one thing in terms of who is the object of our worship, and then you have this small group now. You know, Rome has the military might. Rome has the armies. Rome had conquered the world. Rome had everything. The secret police, the CIA, you know, everything. And then you got this little minority of people saying, no, Jesus, this remember now, we just got through Advent, you know, where was this king born? You mean Bethlehem? Bethlehem. And what? He was placed in a manger? You mean this is a king? You know, and so Christians are saying one thing about who to worship and who is king and who is Lord and who is divine, while the Roman Empire is saying something else. So if you don't worship the emperor, then what is the alternative? The alternative, as I said, is either you're executed or you're taken prisoner and you're shipped off to, you know, these penal colonies, and they weren't close by, you know, and so this is a situation that these Christians of the latter part of the first century found themselves in. So now, then, what were the options for Christians? You ain't got no guns, no weapons, and they were taught not to use that anyway. Jesus was a man of peace, and rejected war and violence and overthrowing the Roman Empire. So what are their alternatives? Well, they had 5 alternatives. You may want to get these down. They had five things that they could have done, 5 responses to emperor worship. First one was they could quit. They could just say, you know, like you on a job you don't like, and what you say. I mean, I guess if you can say it, you know, I quit, and you walk away. And so the first option is simply that no longer am I a Christian. I quit the faith. I quit, and I walk away. See, that's option number 1. Option number 2 is to deceive the empire. And that's deceive is another word for to lie. To lie. And so, how do you deceive the empire and still you know, at least feel like you are a Christian? The way you do that is I'm gonna go through the motions of worshiping the emperor, but then I'm gonna keep my real feelings to myself. You know, you ever been reprimanded by your parent, and they're reprimanding you, and you're scared to say scared to say anything because you know how that's going to turn out. So you kind of say it under your breath. Um, you know, so I'm betraying what I feel because I'm gonna go along with you, but inside, see, and so the this second option, does it can it work? Deception. Uh, I'm gonna go through the motions of worshiping the emperor. I'm gonna call him divine. If he's riding by and everybody around has to bow down to, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do all of that. But inside, I'm gonna remain a Christian. See, I'm gonna still be a Christian, but I like the term. I'm gonna be a closet Christian. See, I'm gonna be a closet Christian, but I'm still gonna be a Christian. But outwardly, I'm gonna go through the motions. I'm gonna do what they want me to do. See, that's we know about that. Even as children, so that we're gonna do what we don't want to do it, but we're gonna do what's expected because we want some outcome. We want, you know, Christmas was a wonderful time to behave correctly because there was a reward for that. See, so that's what the second alternative is. It's sounds strange, doesn't it? It sounds, but don't you got to remember what the penalty is before you say what you won't do. Uh, Execution. Are you willing to be taken out and have your head cut off? Or are you willing to go to prison? And believe me, prison then was not like prison now. See. Third option: rebel. Let's rebel. Let's attempt to overthrow the empire. And I could hardly get those words out because it would be so uh, so ridiculous for a handful of people, Christians, but people without weapons, without status, without power, to go up against Roman might. That's now there. We look back at the history of slavery, and there were moments in our history when and there were persons whose response to slavery and to the humiliation and the abuse of slavery, we're gonna fight. They're recorded in history, persons who, and maybe that shook up the slave masters. You know, maybe there was some good from that. I don't know, but I do know that they lost. um, maybe there was some good that came out over the years. Enough of these rebellions, because the one thing it did was it kept the slave master always on his toes and gave him sleepless nights. That was the one thing that the slave system feared, and that was violent rebellion by slaves. See, and so they put some laws in place and some policies in place so that either couldn't happen, or if it happened, it would be just snuffed out in an instant. But that's an option. And so should we rebel? You know, uh, again, it would be a losing battle to rebel against Rome and all that Rome represented. Then the fourth option, well, we don't want to quit. We, we, you know, we, we don't want to deceive and pretend. And we know if we fight and if we rebel, we're going to lose. Well, then, why don't we change the faith? Change what the faith teaches us so that we can make the faith fit the culture, which is a lot of what's happening today. But let me stay where I should be. Let's all right. We're not going to change Rome, and all of that, and we don't want to be deceptive, and we know rebellion is out of the question. So maybe if we look at our faith, maybe we can make some changes in it, so it becomes compatible with the culture, compatible with the emperor. See, it's kind of compromise, but it's more than compromise, because it's really because Rome isn't compromising. So it's not really a compromise. It's Christians saying, well, maybe if we change what we believe, maybe if the emperor says that he is Lord, then why do we have to say that Jesus is Lord? We just say Jesus. If the emperor says that he's the king and the only king, well, why don't we just tweak it a little bit, our faith, and say, well, we can say Jesus, we don't have to say king. So we can find a way to make the faith and what we believe fit the Roman culture, so that we are not offensive to Rome. So we don't want to offend Rome. So we got to change the way we think about Jesus. Maybe we can tweak a little bit here, tweak a little bit there, and make enough changes so that we can live together and happily and sing Kumbaya, have a good time, and in church and state get along in church and the culture. It was a book that greatly informed me when I was a seminarian, and it was written by a theologian named Richard Richard Niebuhr, and he had a very famous brother theologian named Reinhold Niebuhr, who taught at Union Seminary in New York. And there's a street. He was such a force in theology in the world that there's the street by the seminary is named after him. But his brother H. Richard wrote a book called Christ and Culture. And in this book, he offers different positions that the church has taken over the centuries in relationship to the culture. And he says that there were periods in the history of the church where it was kind of like this, the same thing we're talking about. How can the church be successful by blending in with the culture? And some of that, I think, again, we fall into that trap today. How can we be popular with people? How can the church be popular with people? How can we get people to come to church? How can we give people what they want, so they'll have a better understanding and better acceptance of us? See, so how can we increase church attendance? And one way to do it is what a lot of churches have found out. And I don't want to hit on mega churches particularly, because not all are the same. But let's have a comfortable worship service. Let's never talk about sin. Let's give people what they want, um, and preach a gospel that doesn't offend anybody. See, let's never talk about social issues. Let's stick to the Bible, we say, to the gospel. Uh, let's stick to salvation, because there are preachers and people who believe that religion is just only about their personal relationship with God. So as long as they go into heaven, they fine, or think they go into heaven, they fine. They don't think the church or gospel should deal with social issues or the conditions of people, the impoverished and the hungry, which is really kind of the attitude of our Southern Baptist brothers and sisters and and evangelicals. Uh, you know, are you saved? Do you know the Lord? That's all they care about, and a couple of maybe one or two moral issues, but that's your heart's got to be right. No, and that's fine, but if your heart is right, then what you going to do about human conditions and institutional racism and the plight of immigrant children and the poor and minorities? See, um, so the focus is just on personal salvation, and the rest of y'all don't care what y'all do as long as I'm saved, and we say I'm saved, going to heaven anyhow. See, but I don't read the Bible like that, and so let's change the faith. Is this fourth option? Make it presentable to Rome so that they'll say, "Oh, these are good little Christians over here. They're not stirring up anybody. They're not saying anything against the state, against the empire. So let them be, as long as they stay in their place." We've heard that. Uh, we'll let them be, and that philosophy was in the South during following segregation, following rather slavery. Black people, white people were fine with black people in their communities as long as they stayed in their place. As long as they were nice and didn't stir up anything. It was, and you would ask whites how are race relations, and whites would say, "Oh, good, they're very good." And by that they meant that black folk were staying in their place. See, because the other side of that was what happens if they got out of their place. That there was a system in place that kept them in their place with the threat of violence. See, so that was the fifth option. Last option, and then my time is out. The last option, wow, is to die. To die. Not quit, not try to deceive the empire or play to the emperor's ego, not to rebel, not to try to change the tenets of the faith to suit the culture. But that last option is to die. To die. Execute me.
Oh, Jesus.
Execute me. See. So okay. So those are the options, because those early Christians lived in this culture, this empire, where their faith was being tested. And then the question is, what you gonna do? And these are the five options that they had. See. Okay, I'm gonna stop now. I could go longer, but I won't. But I want to close with this. This is a wonderful season of the year, and I know there's a lot of reasons not to be joyful and and for many people not to celebrate Christmas. I think there's such a malaise in the land, and such um, a feeling of despair and impatience. Um, but I love Christmas. And because I think that it's I know what I believe, and I know that at the heart of Christmas for me, it doesn't matter about all the other fluff and surroundings. I like that too. I really do. I have a tree every year. Uh, I've been decorating a tree ever I became since I became grown and started living by myself. Started pastoring my first church. I've had a live tree every year that I decorate. I love that. I love the Christmas carols, the Christmas music, the decorations. I don't have a problem with any of that. I don't have a problem with the Christmas tree. I think it's a um, if you can't have a problem with it when you see how little children's faces light up. I mean, I think for Christians the challenge is to see beyond that. But I don't want to throw away that because you can have that and still know that at the center of our faith is is what God did in Jesus Christ, and um, that 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 whole uh, term called incarnation. God incarnate. God became flesh. Um, John says the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and that baby Jesus. See, and it's a time of I mean, even for Scrooges, there's something about the season that does give the promise of something better. You know, the promise of peace, and we haven't attained it yet, but just the just the promise of peace and joy and goodwill toward all people, and it's can be a very happy time, and of course, a very trying time for many of us uh, who's who's facing a Christmas after the loss of a parent. I mean, it's a different it's a difference, but through all of that, I see Christ, and I see a manger, and I see how much God loved us. But anyway, I said all that to say, didn't mean to say all that, but that I found a song, and I've been giving you quotes for quite a long time, but I found a song that I want to read the lyrics to it because I was just fascinated by the lyrics, and it's a song. I want you to know if you want to turn me off now before I. It's not a church song. So I do know some songs that are not church songs, but it's not a church song. It's a song that was first sung, I believe, by Stevie Wonder. Uh, but I like the version sung by the Temptations. I'm a Temptations kind of guy. That's my speed. And was it Melvin? Um, what's Melvin's last name? The bass. Come on, somebody. Uh, anyway, um, anyway, Melvin. Bass voice. I thought somebody was gonna tell me what it is. What his name? Anyway, had that melodious uh, bass voice, and he's the one who narrates this song. And I'm going to read the words to it, and we're going to close with this because I see gospel. I see the gospel in this song. Listen to the words. It's the title of the song is "Someday at Christmas." Maybe you recall it. "Someday at Christmas," and these are the words: "Someday at Christmas, men won't be boys. playing with bombs like kids play with toys. One warm December, our hearts will see a world where men are free. Someday at Christmas, there'll be no wars when we have learned what Christmas is for. When we have found what life's really worth, there'll be peace on earth. Someday all our dreams will come to be. Someday in a world where men are free. Maybe not in time for you and me, but someday at Christmas time. Someday at Christmas we'll see a man. No hungry children, no empty hand. One happy morning people will share our world where people care. Someday at Christmas there'll be no tears. All men are equal and no men have fears. One shining moment my heart ran away from our world today. Someday all our dreams will come to be. Someday in a world where men are free. Maybe not in time for you and me, but someday at Christmas time. Someday at Christmas man will not fail. Take hope because your love will prevail. Someday a new world that we can start will hope with hope in every heart. Someday all our dreams will come to be. Someday in a world where men are free. Maybe not in time for you and me, but someday at Christmas time. Someday at Christmas time. Melvin Franklin is that wonderful bass voice, and those fellows are no longer with us. Someday at Christmas. God bless you, and may your Christmas be one of joy as we celebrate the Savior's birth, and may we continue to be safe. And let us believe that next Christmas won't be like this Christmas. If we all do what we're supposed to do, next year will be a better year. God bless you and good night.